I'm Grogan, author of Looking for a Window. Although I've published several other books since it came out, and I'm in the process of publishing more, I would like to say a little bit about it and myself. I compiled a list of questions I figured my readers would want to know the answers to. I'm not going to bore you with a long introduction, so, with no further ado, let's get started. When did you realize you wanted to be a writer? My first memory of writing is when I was 5 years old. My brother, 1 year older than me, was reading a short story he'd written called The Fox and the Hare. It was the story of a fox chasing a rabbit and killing it. I listened to it and thought to myself, I can do better. I sat down and wrote the same story using my own words and style. That was when I realized I wanted to be a writer. How long have you been writing? Well, as I said, I was 5 years old when I first started writing, so it's been almost 50 years. Of course, I was a kid. As I was growing up, I wrote several original short stories. Also, if I watched a show or read a book that I wasn't impressed with, I simply rewrote it. Many of the main characters in my books were kids. I started out with mysteries. I didn't finish many of my longer stories, but I did finish one. It was the average length of a chapter book. It was called The Rocking Horse Mystery. I must have been 9 or 10. It was a murder mystery with a touch of the supernatural. I was very proud of it. I moved to writing and reading fantasy and science fiction when I was a teenager. When I was in my early 20s, I discovered Christian fiction. Reading it, I found out that some books really didn't have many spiritual truths, but were simply about good people doing good things. I wanted to put more substance into my books without getting too preachy. I chose to set the books in the country. I lived on a family-run ranch when I was 20. I liked small towns, ranch work, and the countryside. It was 1994 when I seriously started writing books with the idea of one day becoming published. The books, plots, and ideas were completely my own, and I had stories I wanted to share with the world. Where do you get your inspiration in writing Christian suspense books? Those are the types of books I enjoy reading. I don't like a lot of violence or explicit sex scenes. I like human interest, but that gets boring if there's no intrigue. I keep my eyes and ears open. Sometimes I hear a line in a song, or a plot in a commercial, or even have a dream that sparks the start of a novel in my mind. Sometimes a scene or an event of a character pops into my head. I let it percolate for a while. Then when I feel that I can at least start it, I start writing, and before long, the book writes itself. Tell us more about your book, Looking for a Window. For starters, how did you come up with the idea? How did I come up with the idea? Well, I was looking through some old unfinished stories I'd written in the past before I started writing Christian fiction. I picked one, made a few changes, then I wrote Looking for a Window. Looking for a Window is based on the saying, when God closes a door, he opens a window. It's set in Ackley, California. That's a fictional small town in the ranch lands of Northern California between Weed and Wairika. It's the first book in the Ackley series that centers around the Armstrong Ranch. Although Marlon Armstrong is the link between all the books, his story doesn't come out until the third book, Guns and Glitter. So Looking for a Window starts with Canyon. He just lived through a tragedy and is having a hard time getting over it. And when he decides to give God a chance to help him, he's arrested for the murder of a police officer. Marlon is a lieutenant on the Ackley police force. His wife had died 2 years earlier. Juniper is a young woman who rents the guest house on the ranch and cooks for the family as part of her rental agreement. She takes some rescue horses, nurses them back to health, and gives them some training and then sells them. Marlon, his kids, and Juniper meet up with Canyon and a girl named Kaylee in a series of events that leads Canyon on a journey of loss and redemption, sorrow and happiness, and anger and forgiveness. It seems like all the logical paths end in closed doors, leaving only one window open for Canyon to crawl through. He has a hard time trusting God and is faced with the danger of being convicted of a series of murders he didn't commit. What do you think is the greatest takeaway from the book that your readers should grasp or expect? I don't know if there is one basic takeaway. My books weave together plots and subplots to give my readers different things based on where they're at in their Christian experiences. One of the main takeaways in Looking for a Window is the answer to the question, why do bad things happen to good people? One of the main characters in the book, Tanik, knows the answer to that question, but he doesn't choose to accept it. He showed the wrong way to accept bad things as well as the right way. Another takeaway is the story of the loving father, also known as the story of the prodigal son. If we leave God, it doesn't matter why or for how long, we can always come back and he'll be there waiting for us. Tell us a little bit about the other books in the Ackley series. Looking for a Window is the first book in a series of 5 or 6 books. The next 3 books are already available in paperback and ebook form on Amazon and Kindle. Journey's End brings back several of the characters who were introduced in Looking for a Window and welcomes some new ones. Journey's End is the name of a shelter for abused and homeless women that Juniper opens up. Although she's only been open a month, people start trickling in. There's Andrea, Joshua, and 3 sisters. All of them are ready to end the dark, hopeless journeys they're on and start new ones full of light and faith. The tricky part is they all need different things to start their journeys, and Juniper tries to help out, relying mostly on prayer. When she forsakes prayer, however, in order to do what she thinks is right, she finds out that God is the only one who is able to do what really is right. The third book in the series, Guns and Glitter, focuses mostly on Marlon and also answers the question raised in the first 2 books of why Den and Baxter can't stand each other. In The Sanctuary, I introduced several new characters, all facing personal crises and in dire need of God as their sanctuary. Tell us a little bit about the other series you've written. I have another series out there called the Spear Point series. It takes place primarily in a small Southern California city of Spear Point, and the series covers the lives of people working for and associated with a top-secret American anti-spy agency located there. In Forgotten Memories, Brant Kramer crashes his Mercedes into a tree on a remote mountain road. 3 weeks later, he wakes up in a hospital. He has no memory of the accident, who he is, who his friends are, or that he is married. Because he has no place to go, his wife takes him with her to her parents' ranch, where she'd been living with their kids for the past few months. And while he's living there, he begins to realize that the man he had been hadn't been a good husband and had even been a worse father. During his stay at the ranch, he falls in love with his wife all over again and really gets to know his children for the first time in his life. So he has no desire to go back to his old way of life. But he had left behind too many loose ends. He's pursued by people he doesn't remember, and memories are starting to push their way back to the surface. And he realizes that he has to face his past if he's going to have a future. In a sparkle of danger, Sparkle's life is shattered when her parents are killed by an unknown gunman for unknown reasons. Josh, her only living relative, had been estranged from his sister, Sparkle's mother, for 12 years and hadn't even known about Sparkle. And as if taking Sparkle in isn't hard enough, it's because of Josh's connection to her and her parents that he and Sparkle become targets in a game of cat and mouse. And it's his responsibility to keep Sparkle safe, but he has no idea who or what he's up against or even whom he can trust. Those are the first 2 books in the series. Next one coming out is Scouting for Trouble. I guess you could say that the Spear Point series is a series of suspense and intrigue in a Christian setting. What other books can we expect from you in the future? I have several more books that are set in the Ackley Twin Oaks area, some in Southern California and some in Montana. But they all have the central theme of believing in God. I have quite a cast of characters in different imaginary towns. There's Shadow Creek in Montana, Twin Oaks, Ackley, and Turnaround in Northern California, Spear Point, Coyote Flats, and Badger in Southern California, and Viewpoint, Land, Home, and Shade in Oregon. It's gotten to the point that I take some of the characters, put them in a situation, then sit back and see how they react. I simply write what I see. Sometimes they surprise me. In what way do you think your books can change the lives of your readers and the general audience? My books are a source of encouragement. One example is that God will come to where we're at to take us to where He's at. We don't have to try to be good enough. Also, they center around my favorite Bible verse, Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. Of course, the good in that verse isn't related to physical things, but to our gaining more of Christ. I try to put in several spiritual truths without being too preachy, not as easy as it sounds. I hope that my readers will walk away uplifted and realizing that God loves them and is ready to be their life and life supply. Well, that's all for the questions. If you have more, contact me on my email. It's right there on the screen. MichelleGrogan448@gmail.com. Please stay tuned for a book trailer for Looking for a Window. For more videos, you can go to my page on YouTube. It's Michelle Grogan, author. I also have a page on Facebook under Michelle Grogan and a website right there on the screen. I invite you to take a look. Thank you for watching.
Canyon has turned his back on God, who slammed a door shut on his life when his 12-year-old sister died. Months later, although still reeling from the tragedy, Canyon is ready to give God a chance to take away his sorrow. Minutes after making that decision, he's wrongfully accused of the murder of a police sergeant in his Southern California hometown and finds himself living as a fugitive in Northern California. Marlon Armstrong, a lieutenant on the police force, is still grieving from the death of his wife 2 years earlier. His daughter, Ashlyn, has a propensity to pick up hitchhikers and help out homeless animals and people. The separate arrivals of two strangers raise suspicions and questions that seem impossible to answer. Loss, redemption, happiness and sorrow, anger and forgiveness. Will Canyon finally restore his trust in God and climb through the window that God opened? The one that appears to lead to a conviction for a series of murders he didn't commit.